This white boy called Timmy stood up for a pregnant black woman who was being harassed by a racist customer in a local coffee shop. Timmy had no idea this seemingly ordinary woman was a multimillionaire, and that the next day, she would bless him with a gift that would change his entire life forever. The bell above the door chimed softly as Timmy and Karen stepped into their favorite cafe. The warm, inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped them, instantly lifting their spirits. Timmy's eyes lit up as he took in the familiar sights and sounds of the bustling little spot. "Can we sit by the window, Mom?" Timmy asked, his voice filled with excitement. Karen smiled down at her son, her heart swelling with love. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's find a cozy spot." They weaved their way through the cafe, passing by tables filled with chattering locals and the hum of friendly conversation. The sunlight streamed through the large front windows, casting a warm glow on the worn wooden floors. As they settled into their favorite corner table, Timmy couldn't help but notice how his mom's shoulders relaxed, the tension from her long work week seeming to melt away. He reached across the table and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "I'm so glad we came here today, Mom," Timmy said, his voice soft and sincere. Karen's eyes crinkled at the corners as she smiled back at him. "Me too, honey. This place always makes everything feel better, doesn't it?" The waitress, a kindly older woman named Betty, approached their table with a warm smile. "Well, if it isn't my favorite mother-son duo, what can I get for you two today?" Timmy's face lit up. "Hi, Miss Betty, can I have a hot chocolate, please, with extra whipped cream?" Betty chuckled, her eyes twinkling. "You got it, young man, and for you, Karen." "Just a regular coffee for me, thanks, Betty," Karen replied with a grateful smile. As Betty walked away to fetch their drinks, Timmy's gaze wandered around the cafe. He loved watching all the different people who came here, families, friends, and even people sitting alone with their books or laptops. It made him feel like he was part of something bigger, a community filled with stories and laughter. Karen watched her son, her heart full of pride and love. Despite all the challenges they'd faced, Timmy had grown into such a thoughtful, caring boy. She reached out and ruffled his hair affectionately. "What's on your mind, sweetie?" she asked, noticing the pensive look on his face. Timmy turned back to her, his eyes shining with warmth. "I was just thinking how lucky we are, Mom, to have each other and this special place." Karen felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "Oh, Timmy," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "We are lucky. So very lucky." As Karen and Timmy settled into their cozy corner, Betty returned with their drinks. The rich aroma of coffee and the sweet scent of hot chocolate filled the air around them. "Here you go, dears," Betty said warmly, setting down their beverages. "Are you ready to order your usual?" Karen nodded with a smile. "Yes, please. I'll have the veggie omelet with whole wheat toast." "And for me, can I have the blueberry pancakes?" Timmy asked politely, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Betty jotted down their orders with a nod. "Coming right up." As Betty walked away, the bell above the cafe door chimed again. Timmy's gaze was drawn to the entrance, where a visibly pregnant black woman had just walked in. She looked tired, one hand resting on her swollen belly as she glanced around the busy cafe. Timmy watched her with curiosity and concern. He noticed how she winced slightly as she took a step forward, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom," Timmy whispered, gently tugging on Karen's sleeve. "Look at that lady. She seems like she needs help." Karen followed Timmy's gaze, her expression softening as she saw the pregnant woman. "You're right, honey. She does look like she could use a hand." The woman, Lisa, stood near the entrance, looking uncertain as she scanned the crowded cafe for an empty table. Timmy's kind heart went out to her, seeing how no one else seemed to notice her discomfort. Without hesitation, Timmy stood up from his chair. "Mom, can we invite her to sit with us? There's plenty of room at our table." Karen's eyes welled with pride at her son's thoughtfulness. "That's a wonderful idea, Timmy. Why don't you go ask her?" Timmy nodded and made his way across the cafe, his steps careful but determined. As he approached Lisa, he smiled up at her warmly. "Excuse me, ma'am," Timmy said politely, his voice clear despite his nervousness. "My mom and I noticed you looking for a seat, Would you like to join us at our table? We have extra chairs." Lisa looked down at Timmy, surprise and gratitude washing over her face. She hadn't expected such kindness from a young boy in a crowded cafe. "That's very sweet of you," Lisa replied, her voice tinged with emotion. "Are you sure it wouldn't be a bother?" Timmy shook his head emphatically. "Not at all. We'd be happy to have you. Please come sit down and rest." As Timmy led Lisa back to their table, Karen stood up with a warm smile, pulling out a chair for their new guest. Lisa eased herself into the seat, sighing with relief. "Thank you both so much," Lisa said, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "I really appreciate your kindness." Karen waved off the thanks. "It's our pleasure. I'm Karen, and this is my son, Timmy." Timmy beamed proudly, happy to have helped. "Can we get you something to drink, ma'am?" Before Lisa could respond, a loud, gruff voice cut through the cafe's pleasant chatter. "What's going on here?" Heads turned to see Mr. Anderson, a regular known for his sour attitude, glaring at their table. His face was twisted in a scowl as he pointed an accusing finger at Lisa. "We don't need your kind here," he spat, his words dripping with venom. "Go back where you came from." The cafe fell silent, tension thick in the air. Lisa's shoulders tensed, her hand instinctively moving to protect her unborn child. Timmy's eyes widened in shock and confusion. Karen stood up, her face flushing with anger. "Mr. Anderson, that's completely uncalled for." But Mr. Anderson wasn't finished. He continued his tirade, each word more hateful than the last. "This used to be a nice place before they started letting anyone in. Now look at it." Other customers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some averting their eyes while others watched the scene unfold with a mix of horror and disbelief. Timmy, his young heart racing, couldn't understand why this man was being so mean. He looked at Lisa and saw the pain in her eyes, the way she seemed to shrink under Mr. Anderson's cruel words. Betty, the waitress, rushed over, trying to calm the situation. "Now, Mr. Anderson, that's enough. We don't tolerate that kind of talk here." But Mr. Anderson wouldn't be silenced. He jabbed his finger towards Lisa again, his voice rising. "She doesn't belong here. Can't you see that?" The cafe was now completely still, the only sound the harsh echo of Mr. Anderson's words. Lisa sat frozen, her eyes downcast, trying to make herself as small as possible in the face of such blatant hatred. Timmy's heart raced as he watched the scene unfold before him. His eyes darted from Lisa's pained expression to Mr. Anderson's angry face, then to the other customers who sat in uncomfortable silence. The young boy felt a mix of confusion and anger bubbling up inside him. He couldn't understand why someone would be so mean to another person, especially a lady who was going to have a baby. As the tension in the cafe grew thicker, Timmy looked up at his mother, his eyes wide with uncertainty. Karen met her son's gaze, her face a picture of calm determination. She gave him a small, encouraging nod, her eyes filled with pride and support. Timmy understood the silent message. His mom had always taught him to stand up for what was right, to be kind to others, and to help those in need. He knew she was telling him it was okay to act on the feelings of justice stirring in his heart. Taking a deep breath, Timmy squared his small shoulders. He felt scared, but the memory of his mother's lessons gave him courage. With a trembling hand, he reached out and gently touched Lisa's arm. "Don't listen to him, ma'am," Timmy said, his voice shaky but growing stronger with each word. "You belong here just as much as anyone else." Lisa turned to look at the brave little boy, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. A small, grateful smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. Emboldened by Lisa's smile, Timmy stood up from his chair. His legs felt wobbly, but he forced himself to face Mr. Anderson. The cafe seemed to hold its breath as the young boy spoke up. "Mr. Anderson," Timmy said, his voice clear despite his nervousness, "my mom always says that everyone deserves kindness and respect. What you're saying isn't kind or respectful at all." Timmy's heart pounded in his chest as he stood up, his small frame trembling slightly. The cafe fell silent, all eyes turning to the brave little boy. Mr. Anderson's face twisted with surprise and anger, his mouth agape as he stared at Timmy, "Mr. Anderson," Timmy said, his voice clear and steady despite his fear. "Please stop being mean to this lady. She didn't do anything wrong." Mr. Anderson's face reddened, his fists clenching at his sides. "Listen here, boy," he started, but Timmy cut him off. "No, you listen," Timmy said, surprising himself with his boldness. "My mom always says that we should treat others the way we want to be treated. Would you like it if someone said mean things to you?" The cafe remained hushed, the tension thick in the air. Karen watched her son with pride shining in her eyes, while Lisa looked on in amazement. Timmy took a deep breath and continued, "This lady is going to have a baby. She needs kindness, not meanness. Please, Mr. Anderson, leave her alone." Mr. Anderson's face cycled through various emotions: anger, confusion, and finally, a flicker of shame. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Timmy's voice softened but remained firm. "My mom also says that it's never too late to be kind. Maybe you could try that instead." The young boy's words hung in the air, their simple wisdom touching everyone in the cafe. Even Mr. Anderson seemed affected, his angry expression slowly melting into one of uncertainty. Timmy stood his ground, his eyes locked with Mr. Anderson's. The boy's bravery was contagious, and soon other patrons began to nod in agreement, murmuring their support for Timmy's words. The entire cafe fell silent, all eyes fixed on Timmy. The young boy's words hung in the air, their simple wisdom touching everyone present. Even Mr. Anderson seemed affected, his angry expression slowly melting into one of uncertainty. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was the soft hum of the coffee machines in the background. Timmy stood his ground, his small frame somehow appearing larger in the face of injustice. His eyes remained locked with Mr. Anderson's, unwavering in their conviction. Mr. Anderson's face cycled through various emotions: anger, confusion, and finally, a flicker of shame. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The man who had been so vocal just moments ago now found himself at a loss. The tension in the air was palpable as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Some of the patrons held their breath, while others nodded in silent agreement with Timmy's words. Finally, Mr. Anderson broke eye contact with Timmy. His gaze darted around the cafe, taking in the disapproving looks from the other customers. His face reddened, but this time it wasn't from anger. It was from embarrassment. Grumbling under his breath, Mr. Anderson grabbed his coat from the back of his chair. He avoided looking at anyone as he hastily made his way towards the exit. The bell above the door jingled as he pushed it open and stepped out into the street, leaving behind a cafe full of stunned onlookers. As the door closed behind Mr. Anderson, a collective sigh of relief seemed to sweep through the cafe. The tension that had been building dissipated, replaced by a sense of awe at what they had just witnessed. As the door closed behind Mr. Anderson, Lisa slowly rose from her seat, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She took a deep breath, one hand resting on her swollen belly, and made her way towards Timmy and Karen's table. The cafe was still hushed, the silence broken only by the soft sounds of Lisa's footsteps. As she approached, Timmy looked up at her, his young face a mixture of concern and determination. "Thank you," Lisa said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." She reached out and gently touched Timmy's shoulder, her gratitude evident in every gesture. Karen smiled warmly at Lisa, her eyes filled with pride as she looked at her son. "It was the right thing to do," she said simply. Lisa nodded, wiping away a tear that had escaped. "Your son is incredibly brave," she told Karen. "Not many adults would have done what he did." Timmy blushed at the praise, looking down at his hands. "I just didn't like seeing you treated that way," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. Lisa knelt down beside Timmy, meeting his eyes. "What you did means more than you know," she said earnestly. "You stood up for what's right, and that takes real courage." As if on cue, the cafe erupted in applause. The other patrons who had been watching the scene unfold began to clap and cheer for Timmy. The sound filled the small space, a chorus of approval for the young boy's bravery. Timmy's eyes widened in surprise as he looked around the cafe. People were smiling at him, nodding their heads in respect. Some even stood up, their applause growing louder. Karen wrapped an arm around her son's shoulders, beaming with pride. "You did good, Timmy," she whispered, kissing the top of his head. The applause continued, washing over Timmy in waves. He felt a warmth spreading through his chest, a mix of embarrassment and happiness. He hadn't acted to be a hero or to get attention. He'd simply done what he felt was right. Lisa stood up, joining in the applause. Her eyes shone with gratitude and admiration for the young boy who had stood up for her when no one else would. As the applause died down, Lisa pulled up a chair to join Timmy and Karen at their table. The cafe slowly returned to its usual hum of conversation, but a newfound warmth lingered in the air. "I hope you don't mind if I join you," Lisa said, her voice soft and grateful. "I'd love to thank you properly." Karen smiled warmly. "Of course, please sit. I'm Karen, and this is my son, Timmy." Lisa settled into the chair, her hand resting on her belly. "It's wonderful to meet you both. I'm Lisa." She paused, taking a deep breath. "What happened today? It's not the first time I've faced something like that." Timmy's eyes widened, his young face etched with concern. He leaned forward, listening intently as Lisa began to share her story. "I've dealt with prejudice my whole life," Lisa continued, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. "Being a black woman in this town hasn't always been easy, and now, being pregnant and single, well, some people are quick to judge." Karen reached out, gently patting Lisa's hand. "I'm so sorry you've had to go through that. No one should face such treatment." Lisa nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It's been tough, but I'm determined to give my baby the best life possible. I work 2 jobs trying to save up for when the little one arrives." Timmy, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "That's really brave of you, Ms. Lisa," he said earnestly. "You're working so hard for your baby." Lisa's eyes softened as she looked at Timmy. "Thank you, sweetheart. It means a lot to hear that." She paused, her gaze moving between Timmy and Karen. "You know, seeing how you two interact, it gives me hope. Hope that I can raise my child to be as kind and brave as Timmy." Karen beamed with pride, wrapping an arm around Timmy's shoulders. "It hasn't always been easy being a single mom myself, but moments like today remind me that we're doing all right." As Lisa continued to share more about her life, her struggles, and her hopes for the future, Timmy listened with rapt attention. He felt a deep connection to Lisa's story, his young heart filled with empathy for the challenges she faced. As the conversation wound down, Lisa glanced at her watch and sighed. "Oh my, I've taken up so much of your time. I should get going," she said, her voice tinged with reluctance. Karen shook her head, smiling warmly. "Not at all. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, Lisa." Timmy nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, Ms. Lisa, I'm really glad we met you." Lisa's eyes welled up with tears, touched by the genuine kindness of this mother and son. She fumbled in her purse, pulling out a small notepad and pen. "I'd love to stay in touch if that's okay," she said, her voice hopeful. "Maybe we could grab coffee again sometime?" "That would be wonderful," Karen replied, taking the offered notepad. She jotted down her phone number and email address, then tore off the page and handed it to Lisa. "Please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever need anything." Lisa carefully tucked the paper into her purse, then scribbled her own contact information for Karen. As she stood up, she placed a gentle hand on Timmy's shoulder. "Thank you again, Timmy. What you did today, it means more than you know." Timmy beamed up at her, his chest swelling with pride. "I'm just glad I could help, Ms. Lisa." As Lisa made her way to the cafe door, she turned back one last time, waving goodbye to Timmy and Karen. The bell above the door tinkled as she stepped out into the morning sunlight. Timmy watched her go, a sense of fulfillment washing over him. He had stood up for what was right, and in doing so, he'd made a new friend. His mother's words from earlier echoed in his mind, reminding him of the importance of kindness and bravery. Karen squeezed Timmy's hand, her eyes shining with pride. "You did good today, sweetheart. Really good." Timmy smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. He knew that his small act of courage had made a difference, and that feeling was better than any reward he could imagine. As Timmy and Karen made their way home, the events of the morning played over and over in Timmy's mind. The warm afternoon sun cast long shadows on the sidewalk, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead. Timmy walked with a newfound spring in his step, his hand firmly clasped in his mother's. "Mom," Timmy said, breaking the comfortable silence between them, "do you think we did the right thing today?" Karen squeezed his hand reassuringly. "Absolutely, sweetheart. Standing up for others is always the right thing to do." Timmy nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I felt scared at first, but then I remembered what you always tell me about being brave." "And you were very brave," Karen replied, her voice filled with pride. "I couldn't be more proud of you, Timmy." As they turned onto their street, Timmy's thoughts drifted to Lisa. He wondered how she was doing now, and if she had made it home safely. A part of him hoped they would see her again soon. Reaching their modest house, Karen unlocked the front door and they stepped inside. Timmy kicked off his shoes and flopped onto the living room couch, letting out a contented sigh. "You know, Mom," he said, staring up at the ceiling, "I feel really good about what happened today, like I made a difference." Karen sat down next to him, running her fingers through his hair. "You did make a difference, Timmy. You showed Lisa that there are good people in this world who will stand up for what's right." Timmy sat up, his eyes bright with excitement. "Do you think we'll see her again? Maybe we could invite her over for dinner sometime." Karen chuckled at her son's enthusiasm. "That's a wonderful idea, honey. We'll give her a call in a few days and see if she'd like to visit." As the afternoon wore on, Timmy found himself replaying the morning's events in his mind. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, knowing that his small act of courage had made someone's day better. And while he hoped to see Lisa again, he also realized that the most important thing was to keep being kind and brave, no matter who was watching. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Timmy's bedroom window, gently rousing him from his sleep. He rubbed his eyes and yawned, stretching his arms above his head. As he sat up, something caught his eye on his bedside table. There, propped against his alarm clock, was an ornate envelope. It was made of thick, creamy paper with delicate gold swirls decorating the edges. Timmy's name was written on the front in elegant, swooping handwriting. His heart began to race with excitement. Who could have sent him such a fancy letter? With trembling fingers, he carefully opened the envelope, making sure not to tear it. Inside, he found a beautifully designed card. It read, "Dear Timmy, you are cordially invited to a special event at Le Jardin restaurant this evening at 7 p.m. Your act of kindness has not gone unnoticed, and we would be honored if you and your mother would join us for a celebration of compassion and bravery. Dressed smart casual. RSVP, not necessary. We eagerly await your arrival." Timmy's eyes widened in disbelief. He had never been invited to such a fancy place before. Le Jardin was the fanciest restaurant in town, a place he had only ever seen from the outside. "Mom! Mom!" he called out, jumping out of bed and racing to the kitchen where Karen was making breakfast. "What is it, sweetie?" Karen asked, looking concerned at Timmy's urgency. Timmy thrust the invitation into her hands, bouncing on his toes as she read it. "Can we go, Mom? Please?" Karen's expression changed from confusion to surprise, and then to a warm smile. "Of course we can go, Timmy. This is quite an honor." As the reality of the invitation sank in, Timmy felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had never been to a fancy restaurant before. What if he used the wrong fork or spilled something on his clothes? "Mom," he said, his voice suddenly small. "What if I mess up? What if I embarrass myself?" Karen knelt down to Timmy's level, placing her hands on his shoulders. "Timmy, remember this. It's not about being perfect. It's about being yourself, the kind, brave boy who stood up for what's right. That's why you're being honored." Karen looked at the invitation again, her brow furrowing slightly. While she was touched by the gesture, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of caution. After all, they didn't know who had sent it. "Timmy, honey," she said gently, I think we should check if this invitation is real before we get too excited. Timmy's face fell a little, but he nodded, understanding his mother's concern. Karen picked up her phone and dialed the number printed at the bottom of the invitation. After a few rings, a warm, professional voice answered, Le Jardin Restaurant. How may I assist you? Karen took a deep breath. Hello, my name is Karen. My son Timmy and I received an invitation to an event at your restaurant this evening. I was wondering if you could confirm if this is genuine. There was a brief pause, and then the voice replied enthusiastically, Ah, yes, Karen and Timmy. We've been eagerly awaiting your call. The invitation is absolutely genuine, and we're thrilled that you've reached out. Karen felt a wave of relief wash over her. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Could you tell me a bit more about the event? The representative's voice grew even warmer. Of course, it's a special celebration in honor of acts of kindness and bravery in our community. Your son's actions at the cafe have not gone unnoticed, and we would be honored to have you both attend. As Karen listened to the details, she couldn't help but smile. She glanced at Timmy, who was watching her intently, his eyes wide with hope and excitement. Thank you so much for the information, Karen said. We're looking forward to attending. As she hung up the phone, Timmy could barely contain himself. Well, Mom, is it real? Can we go? Karen nodded, her eyes twinkling. It's real, sweetie. We're going to Le Jardin tonight. Timmy let out a whoop of joy, jumping up and down. This is going to be amazing. Timmy stood in front of his bedroom mirror, his small hands fumbling with the buttons of his best dress shirt. It was crisp and white, a stark contrast to his usual t-shirts and jeans. His face scrunched up in concentration as he tried to make himself look presentable. Mom, he called out, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and frustration. I can't get these buttons right. Karen appeared in the doorway, already dressed in a simple but elegant blue dress. Her eyes softened as she took in the sight of her son struggling with his shirt. Here, let me help you, sweetie, she said, kneeling down to assist him. As she fixed his buttons, she couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. You look so handsome, Timmy. Just like a little gentleman. Timmy beamed at the compliment, his earlier frustration forgotten. Do you think they'll have fancy food at the restaurant, Mom? He asked, his eyes wide with wonder. Karen chuckled softly. I'm sure they will. But remember, it's not about the food. It's about celebrating kindness and bravery. Your kindness and bravery. As they finished getting ready, a mix of emotions swirled in both their hearts. Excitement bubbled up at the thought of attending such a special event, but there was also a flutter of nerves. After all, Le Jardin was the fanciest restaurant in town, a place they had only ever admired from the outside. Are you ready, Timmy? Karen asked, grabbing her purse and car keys. Timmy nodded, taking a deep breath. I think so, Mom. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited too. Karen smiled warmly, reaching out to take his hand. That's okay, sweetie. I'm a little nervous too, but we'll be there together, and that's what matters. Hand in hand, they walked out to their old but well-cared-for car. As they drove through the town, the streets gradually became more upscale, and soon the gleaming facade of Le Jardin came into view. Timmy's eyes widened as he took in the sight of the restaurant. Twinkling lights adorned the entrance, and smartly dressed people were making their way inside. It looked like something out of a fairy tale. Wow, he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Karen squeezed his hand reassuringly as they stepped out of the car. Remember, Timmy, you deserve to be here. What you did was brave and kind, and that's what tonight is all about. Taking a deep breath, mother and son walked towards the entrance, ready to step into an evening unlike any they had experienced before. As Timmy and Karen stepped into Le Jardin, they were immediately enveloped by an atmosphere of elegance. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and the soft murmur of conversation filled the air. A smartly dressed host greeted them with a warm smile. Good evening. You must be Timmy and Karen, he said, his voice smooth and welcoming. We've been expecting you. Please, follow me. Timmy's eyes darted around, taking in the plush carpets and ornate decorations. He gripped his mother's hand tightly, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the grandeur. Karen, too, felt out of place, but she put on a brave face for her son's sake. The host led them through the main dining area, where patrons in fine attire enjoyed their meals. Timmy couldn't help but notice how different it was from their usual family restaurants. As they approached a door at the far end of the room, the host turned to them with a smile. "Your private dining area awaits," he said, opening the door with a flourish. Timmy and Karen stepped inside, and their jaws dropped in surprise. The room was beautifully decorated with flowers and soft lighting, but what caught their attention was the person waiting for them. There, standing by an elegantly set table, was Lisa. She wore a stunning emerald green dress that accentuated her pregnant belly, and her face lit up with a radiant smile as she saw them enter. "Timmy, Karen," Lisa exclaimed, her voice filled with warmth. "I'm so glad you could make it." Timmy's eyes widened in shock. "Lisa," he said, his voice a mix of surprise and excitement. "What are you doing here?" Karen, equally stunned, managed to find her voice. We had no idea you'd be here. This is quite a surprise." Lisa's eyes twinkled with mischief and joy. "Well, I couldn't miss the chance to properly thank the brave young man who stood up for me, could I?" She walked over to them, her movements graceful despite her condition. "You two are in for quite an evening." Lisa gestured for Timmy and Karen to take a seat at the table. As they settled into the plush chairs, Lisa sat across from them, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I have a confession to make," Lisa began, her voice gentle but filled with purpose. "I'm not just a regular customer at the cafe. I'm actually the owner." Timmy's eyes widened in surprise and Karen let out a small gasp. Lisa continued, her smile growing wider. "But that's not all. I'm also a philanthropist and I have quite a bit of wealth that I use to help others." Timmy tilted his head, trying to understand. "But why were you pretending to be someone else?" he asked innocently. Lisa leaned forward, her expression warm and understanding. "You see, Timmy, I often go undercover to see how people really treat each other. It's my way of finding genuine kindness in the world." Karen nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "So that day at the cafe?" "Yes," Lisa confirmed. "I was there to observe, to see if anyone would stand up against injustice. And you two," she paused, her eyes filling with emotion. "You two showed me the kind of courage and compassion I've been searching for." Timmy's cheeks flushed with pride, but he also felt a bit confused. "But why do you do this?" he asked. Lisa's expression turned thoughtful. "I've faced my share of prejudice in my life, Timmy. It made me want to make a difference, to find and reward kindness wherever I could find it." She reached out and gently patted Timmy's hand. "What you did that day, standing up to Mr. Anderson, it wasn't just brave, it was a beacon of hope. It showed me that there are still good people in this world, people willing to stand up for what's right." Karen wiped a tear from her eye, overwhelmed by Lisa's words and the significance of what was happening. "We had no idea," she said softly. Lisa smiled warmly at them both. "That's the beauty of it. Your kindness was genuine. Not because you thought you'd get something out of it, but because it was the right thing to do." Lisa's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she continued to speak, her voice filled with emotion. "Timmy, Karen, what you did that day touched my heart more than you could ever know. It's rare to find such genuine kindness and bravery, especially in a world that can sometimes feel so cold." Timmy listened intently, his young face a mixture of pride and awe. Karen reached out and squeezed his hand, her own eyes brimming with tears of joy and love for her son. "Your actions," Lisa went on, her gaze moving between mother and son, "reminded me of why I started this mission in the first place, to find and celebrate those who make the world a better place, one small act at a time." She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "That's why I've invited you here today. I want to reward you both for your bravery and compassion." Timmy's eyes widened in surprise. "Reward us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lisa nodded, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Yes, Timmy. What you did deserves recognition. It's not just about standing up to Mr. Anderson. but about the ripple effect your actions can have on our community. She turned to Karen, acknowledging the role she played. And you, Karen. The values you've instilled in Timmy, the way you've raised him to be kind and just, that deserves recognition too. Karen blushed, feeling both proud and humbled. We don't need a reward, she said softly. We just did what was right. Lisa reached out, gently patting Karen's hand. I know you don't need it, and that's exactly why you deserve it. Your humility and genuine goodness are rare and precious. Timmy looked up at his mother, then back at Lisa. What kind of reward? He asked, curiosity getting the better of him. Lisa's smile grew even wider. Well, that's what I wanted to discuss with you both. I have some ideas, but I'd like to hear your thoughts too. After all, the best rewards are the ones that truly make a difference in people's lives. Lisa reached into her purse and pulled out an elegant envelope, her eyes twinkling with excitement. She handed it to Timmy, who accepted it with trembling hands. Go ahead, open it, Lisa encouraged softly. Timmy carefully opened the envelope, his small fingers fumbling slightly with anticipation. He pulled out a formal-looking document and began to read, his brow furrowing in concentration. Karen leaned in, her curiosity getting the better of her. As they both scanned the contents, their eyes widened in disbelief. Is this real? Karen whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Lisa nodded, her smile radiating warmth and sincerity. Yes, it is. Timmy, I'm setting up a scholarship fund for your education. This means that when you're ready for college, or any other educational path you choose, you won't have to worry about how to pay for it. Timmy looked up from the document, his eyes shining with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. But why? He asked, his young mind struggling to comprehend the magnitude of this gift. Lisa leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Because, Timmy, kindness and bravery like yours should be nurtured. I want to make sure you have every opportunity to grow, learn, and continue making this world a better place. Karen wiped a tear from her cheek, overwhelmed by the generosity. This is too much, she murmured, shaking her head in disbelief. It's not too much, Lisa assured her. It's an investment in a brighter future, not just for Timmy, but for all the lives he'll touch as he grows up. Timmy looked at the document again, then at his mother, and finally at Lisa. His voice was small but filled with determination when he spoke. Thank you, Ms. Lisa. I promise I'll work hard and make you proud. Lisa's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Oh, Timmy, she said softly, you've already made me proud. This is just to ensure that you can keep following your heart and standing up for what's right, no matter where life takes you. Lisa's eyes sparkled with excitement as she turned to Karen. And that's not all, she said, her voice warm and inviting. Karen, I have an offer for you too. Karen blinked in surprise, her hand instinctively reaching for Timmy's shoulder. For me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lisa nodded, her smile growing wider. Yes, for you. I've been incredibly impressed by the way you've raised Timmy. Your guidance and values are clearly reflected in his actions. I'd like to offer you a job at my organization. Karen's eyes widened and she leaned forward slightly, hanging on Lisa's every word. We work to help people in need, Lisa continued, her tone earnest. People who face discrimination, poverty, and other challenges. I believe your compassion and strength would be invaluable to our team. Karen's lips parted in shock and she glanced at Timmy, who was beaming up at her. She turned back to Lisa, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't know what to say, she stammered, overwhelmed by the unexpected offer. Lisa reached across the table and gently placed her hand on Karen's. You don't have to decide right now, she assured her, but I want you to know that this opportunity is here for you if you want it. Karen took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. She looked at Timmy, then back at Lisa, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief etched on her face. It's more than I ever could have imagined, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Timmy squeezed his mother's hand, his eyes shining with pride and excitement. Mom, you'd be so good at helping people, he exclaimed. Karen laughed softly, wiping away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. She took another deep breath and straightened her shoulders, a new resolve settling over her features. "Lisa, I would be honored to accept your offer," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Lisa's face lit up with joy. "Wonderful!" she exclaimed, clapping her hands together. "I'm so thrilled to have you join us, Karen. Together we can make a real difference in people's lives." Karen nodded, a mixture of excitement and nervousness fluttering in her chest. "Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for everything. I promise I'll work hard and do my best to help others." As the sun rose on a new day, the story of Timmy's bravery and the incredible surprise that followed began to ripple through their small community. Word spread like wildfire, carried on the winds of gossip and admiration. The first knock on their door came early that morning. It was Mrs. Wilson from next door, her arms laden with a freshly baked apple pie. "I heard what happened," she said, her eyes twinkling with pride. "You two are simply amazing." Karen blushed, accepting the pie with a grateful smile. Timmy peeked out from behind his mother, his face beaming with a mixture of shyness and happiness. Throughout the day, a steady stream of visitors came to their modest home. Some brought small gifts, others simply wanted to shake their hands and offer congratulations. The Petersons from down the street brought a handmade card, signed by all the kids in the neighborhood. Mr. Garcia, the retired teacher, stopped by with tears in his eyes, telling Timmy how proud he was of his former student. The phone rang off the hook with friends and distant relatives calling to express their joy and admiration. Karen's sister called from 3 states away, her voice choked with emotion as she told Karen how proud she was. Even at the local grocery store, people stopped Karen and Timmy in the aisles to pat them on the back and offer kind words. The cashier gave them a discount, winking as she said, "For our local heroes." As evening fell, Timmy sat on the porch steps watching the sunset. He felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the weather. Karen joined him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" she asked softly. Timmy looked up at her, his eyes shining. "I feel good, Mom. But I didn't do it for all this attention. I just wanted to help Lisa." Karen squeezed him tighter, her heart swelling with pride. "I know, honey. That's what makes you so special. You did the right thing simply because it was right." In the days that followed, Timmy's act of kindness continued to inspire his community. His story spread far and wide, touching hearts and sparking conversations about bravery and compassion. One morning, as Timmy sat at the breakfast table, Karen answered a call from his school principal. Her eyes widened as she listened, and a smile spread across her face. "Timmy," she said, hanging up the phone, "the principal wants you to speak at a special assembly. They want you to talk about standing up against injustice." Timmy's spoon clattered into his cereal bowl. "Me? Speak in front of the whole school?" His voice quivered with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Karen knelt beside him, her eyes full of love and pride. "You can do it, sweetie. Your story is important, and it could help other kids learn to be brave too." Over the next few days, Timmy worked on his speech. He practiced in front of the mirror, in the backyard, and even to his stuffed animals. Karen helped him find the right words, reminding him to speak from his heart. On the day of the assembly, Timmy stood backstage, his hands shaking slightly. He peeked out at the sea of faces filling the auditorium. There were students, teachers, and even some parents. He spotted Lisa in the crowd, giving him a reassuring smile. The principal introduced Timmy, calling him a local hero and an inspiration to us all. As Timmy walked to the microphone, the room erupted in applause. Taking a deep breath, Timmy began to speak. His voice, though soft at first, grew stronger with each word. He told the story of that day in the cafe, describing how it felt to see someone being treated unfairly. "I was scared," he admitted, "but I knew I had to do something. My mom always taught me that it's important to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard." As Timmy spoke, he saw nodding heads and teary eyes in the audience. He talked about how one small act of kindness could make a big difference, and how everyone had the power to stand up against injustice. "We can all be heroes," Timmy concluded, his voice ringing clear and true. All we have to do is be kind and brave. The auditorium burst into thunderous applause. Students and teachers alike rose to their feet, cheering for Timmy. As he looked out at the crowd, Timmy felt a warmth spread through his chest. He realized that his simple act of kindness had started something much bigger than himself. As the weeks passed, Timmy and Karen settled into their new routines. The changes in their lives, brought about by that fateful day at the cafe, were both exciting and a little overwhelming. Karen's first day at Lisa's organization arrived, and she woke up early, filled with nervous energy. She put on her new work clothes, carefully chosen for her new role. As she made breakfast, Timmy came into the kitchen, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Are you ready for your big day, Mom?" he asked, giving her a hug. Karen smiled, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "I think so, sweetie. It's a big change, but I'm looking forward to it." After dropping Timmy off at school, Karen drove to the organization's office. The building was modern and welcoming, with large windows that let in plenty of sunlight. As she walked through the doors, Lisa greeted her warmly. "Welcome, Karen. We're so excited to have you join our team," Lisa said, leading her through the office. Karen's new job involved coordinating outreach programs for underprivileged families in their community. She spent her days talking to people in need, connecting them with resources, and developing new initiatives to make a difference. At first, the work was challenging. Karen had to learn new skills and navigate complex situations, but with each passing day, she felt more confident and fulfilled. She came home each evening with stories of the people she'd helped and the lives she'd touched. Timmy loved hearing about his mom's day. He'd sit at the kitchen table doing his homework, while Karen prepared dinner and shared her experiences. "Today we helped a single dad find affordable childcare so he could go back to work," she'd say. Or, "We organized a food drive for families struggling to make ends meet." Timmy would listen intently, his eyes wide with admiration. "You're like a superhero, Mom," he'd say, making Karen laugh and ruffle his hair. As the days turned into weeks, Karen found herself thriving in her new role. She woke up each morning with a sense of purpose, eager to face the day's challenges. The work was often difficult, but the reward of helping others made it all worthwhile. As the weeks passed, Timmy's life at school began to change. The scholarship from Lisa had opened up new possibilities, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose in his studies. Each morning, he woke up eager to learn, his backpack filled with books and his mind brimming with curiosity. In class, Timmy's hand shot up more often, answering questions with growing confidence. His teachers noticed the change, praising his increased participation and improved grades. During lunch breaks, he'd sit with his friends, excitedly sharing what he'd learned that day. "Did you know that there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth?" he'd say, his eyes wide with wonder. His friends would listen, amazed by his newfound knowledge and enthusiasm. Timmy's passion for learning was contagious, and soon his classmates were asking him for help with their homework. At home, Karen watched her son's transformation with pride. She'd often find him curled up on the couch, nose buried in a book about space, history, or science. When she'd ask about his day, Timmy would launch into detailed explanations of what he'd learned, his words tumbling out in excited bursts. "Mom, today we learned about the water cycle," he'd say, his hands moving animatedly as he spoke. "It's amazing how water travels all around the world, from oceans to clouds to rain and back again." Karen would listen, her heart swelling with joy at her son's enthusiasm. She knew that Lisa's generosity had given Timmy more than just financial support. It had given him the confidence to dream big. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Timmy looked up from his plate with a serious expression. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with determination, "I want to be like Lisa when I grow up. I want to help people and make a difference in the world." Karen reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "You already are, sweetheart," she said softly. "Every day you're growing into a kind, smart, and brave young man. I'm so proud of you." Timmy beamed at his mother's words, feeling a warm glow of pride and purpose. He knew that with his scholarship, his mother's love, and his own determination, he could achieve anything he set his mind to. The future stretched out before him, full of possibilities, and Timmy couldn't wait to see what adventures lay ahead. As the months passed, Lisa became a regular presence in Timmy and Karen's lives. Her sleek car would pull up to their modest home every few weekends, bringing with it the promise of laughter, warmth, and new experiences. At first, Timmy and Karen felt a bit nervous around Lisa, unsure how to act with someone so wealthy and influential. But Lisa's down-to-earth nature quickly put them at ease. She'd show up in jeans and a t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, ready for whatever adventure the day might bring. "So, what's the plan today, team?" Lisa would ask, her eyes twinkling with excitement. Sometimes they'd go for picnics in the park, other times they'd explore local museums, or try out new recipes in Karen's kitchen. Timmy loved these visits. He'd pepper Lisa with questions about her travels and her work, soaking up every bit of knowledge she shared. Lisa, in turn, was captivated by Timmy's curiosity and kind heart. She'd often bring him books on topics he was interested in, fueling his love for learning. Karen watched their bond grow with a mixture of joy and gratitude. She saw how Lisa's influence was shaping Timmy, encouraging him to dream big and work hard. But more than that, she found in Lisa a true friend, someone she could confide in, laugh with, and lean on during tough times. One sunny Saturday, as they sat on the porch sipping lemonade, Lisa turned to Karen with a soft smile. "You know," she said, "I never had a family of my own, but being here with you and Timmy, it feels like home." Karen reached out and squeezed Lisa's hand, her eyes misting over. "You are family," she said simply. Timmy, overhearing their conversation, rushed over and threw his arms around both of them. "Group hug," he shouted, causing all three to burst into laughter. As the days turned into weeks and months, their bond only grew stronger. They celebrated birthdays together, shared holiday meals, and created countless memories. Lisa was there for Timmy's school plays and science fairs, cheering him on from the audience. And when Karen needed advice or just a listening ear, Lisa was always just a phone call away. The day of the grand opening arrived, and the whole town buzzed with excitement. The Timmy Johnson Community Center stood proudly at the heart of the neighborhood, its freshly painted walls gleaming in the morning sun. Colorful balloons and streamers adorned the entrance, welcoming visitors to this new beacon of hope and unity. Timmy, Karen, and Lisa stood near the front doors, greeting people as they arrived. Timmy's eyes were wide with wonder, taking in the crowds and the building that bore his name. He tugged at his mother's sleeve, his voice filled with awe. "Mom, can you believe it? All these people are here because of what we did." Karen smiled down at her son, her heart swelling with pride. "That's right, sweetheart. Your kindness started all of this." As more townspeople arrived, the atmosphere grew festive. Children ran around, playing games on the new playground equipment. Adults chatted excitedly, exploring the various rooms and facilities inside the center. Mayor Thompson stepped up to the podium set up in front of the building. He cleared his throat, and the crowd fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming through the speakers, "today we celebrate not just the opening of a new building, but the spirit of kindness and community that made it possible." He went on to recount the story of Timmy's brave act in the cafe, and how it led to this moment. As he spoke, Timmy felt his cheeks grow warm with a mix of embarrassment and pride. Lisa then took the stage, her eyes shining with emotion. "When I witnessed Timmy's act of kindness that day, I knew I had to do something special," she said. "This center is more than just a building. It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we stand up for what's right and support one another." She turned to Timmy and Karen, gesturing for them to join her. As they walked up, the crowd erupted in applause. Timmy felt overwhelmed by the love and support radiating from everyone around him. Lisa handed Timmy a large pair of scissors. "Would you do the honors?" she asked with a warm smile. With trembling hands, Timmy approached the red ribbon stretched across the entrance. He took a deep breath, looked out at the sea of smiling faces, and cut the ribbon. As the ribbon fluttered to the ground, a cheer erupted from the crowd. Timmy beamed with pride, his eyes shining with unshed tears of joy. Lisa placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lisa announced, her voice carrying over the excited murmurs, "I declare the Timmy Johnson Community Center officially open." The doors swung wide, inviting everyone inside. Timmy, Karen, and Lisa led the way, stepping into the bright, welcoming foyer. The walls were adorned with colorful murals depicting scenes of people helping one another, a visual representation of the center's mission. As they walked through the various rooms, Timmy marveled at all the different activities and services the center would offer. There was a tutoring room filled with books and computers, a large gymnasium for sports and exercise classes, and even a community kitchen where cooking lessons would be held. In the main hall, a banner hung proudly reading "Kindness and Equality for All." Timmy read it aloud, his voice filled with wonder. "Is that what this place is all about, Lisa?" Lisa nodded, her eyes twinkling. "That's right, Timmy. This center is dedicated to promoting the very values you showed that day in the cafe. We want to teach everyone the importance of kindness and treating each other equally, regardless of our differences." Karen wiped a tear from her eye, overwhelmed by the impact her son's actions had made. "I can't believe how much good has come from one small act of kindness," she said, her voice thick with emotion. As they continued their tour, community members approached Timmy, shaking his hand and thanking him for inspiring this wonderful new addition to their town. Timmy felt a warmth spreading through his chest, realizing that his bravery had touched so many lives. The grand opening was more than just the unveiling of a new building. It was the beginning of a movement, a commitment to fostering a community built on compassion and respect. As Timmy looked around at the smiling faces and the bustling activity, he knew that this was just the start of something truly special. As the tour concluded, the crowd gathered in the main hall for the final part of the opening ceremony. Timmy felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach as he approached the podium. Lisa gave him an encouraging nod, and Karen squeezed his hand before he stepped up to the microphone. Timmy took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the sea of friendly faces before him. With a voice that started soft but grew stronger with each word, he began his speech. "Thank you all for coming today," Timmy said, his words clear and heartfelt. "I never thought that standing up for what's right would lead to all of this, but I'm so glad it did." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "This community center isn't just about me. It's about all of us. It's about the kind of world we want to live in, a world where everyone is treated with kindness and respect." Timmy's voice trembled slightly as he continued. "I learned from my mom that it's important to help others and to speak up when something's not right. And now, thanks to Lisa's generosity, we have this amazing place where we can all learn to be kinder and more understanding." The audience listened intently, many nodding in agreement. Some wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the young boy's sincerity. "I hope this center will be a place where people of all backgrounds can come together," Timmy said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Where we can learn from each other, help each other, and make our community even stronger." He looked directly at the crowd, his voice filled with determination. "I dream of a future where no one feels left out or treated unfairly, where we celebrate our differences instead of letting them divide us. And I believe this center is a big step towards making that dream come true." As Timmy concluded his speech, the hall erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, cheering and clapping. Karen wiped tears from her eyes, overcome with pride for her son. Lisa beamed, knowing that her investment in Timmy and the community had been more than worthwhile. The audience's reaction showed just how deeply Timmy's words had touched them. His simple yet powerful message of kindness and equality resonated with everyone present, inspiring them to carry this spirit of compassion beyond the walls of the new community center. The community center quickly became a bustling hub of activity, breathing new life into the neighborhood. From the moment its doors opened, it was clear that this place would be more than just a building. It would be the heart of the community. Every day, the center hummed with the chatter of children, the laughter of families, and the warmth of newfound friendships. Timmy and Karen were frequent visitors, always eager to lend a helping hand or participate in the various programs. One of the most popular offerings was the after-school tutoring program. Children from all backgrounds gathered in the brightly decorated study rooms, where volunteers helped them with their homework and encouraged their academic pursuits. Timmy, remembering his own struggles in school, often joined in to help the younger kids with their math problems. The center also hosted a food bank, which quickly became a lifeline for many families in need. Karen coordinated with local grocery stores and restaurants to ensure a steady supply of nutritious food. The gratitude in the eyes of those who received help was a constant reminder of the impact they were making. On weekends, the community center transformed into a hub of cultural exchange. Families from different backgrounds took turns hosting culture days, where they shared their traditions, food, and stories. The aroma of diverse cuisines filled the air as people eagerly sampled dishes from around the world. These events fostered understanding and broke down barriers, just as Timmy had hoped. The center also offered job training workshops and resume-writing classes, empowering adults to improve their employment prospects. Many participants found new hope and confidence as they acquired valuable skills and support. For the elderly members of the community, the center provided a place to socialize and stay active. Senior yoga classes and book clubs became popular, combating loneliness and promoting mental well-being among older residents. As the weeks passed, the impact of the community center became increasingly evident. Neighbors who had once been strangers now greeted each other warmly on the streets. Children from different schools formed lasting friendships. The sense of unity that Timmy had dreamed of was slowly but surely becoming a reality. Timmy and Karen became fixtures at the community center, their dedication and enthusiasm inspiring others to get involved. Every week they carved out time from their busy schedules to volunteer, each finding their own unique ways to contribute. Karen, drawing from her experience at Lisa's organization, took charge of organizing the food bank. She coordinated with local businesses, arranged pickups, and managed a team of volunteers. Her warm smile and kind words made everyone feel welcome, whether they were there to help or to receive assistance. "Remember, we're all part of the same community," Karen would often say, her eyes twinkling with compassion. "Today we might be helping, but tomorrow we might need help ourselves. That's why we're here for each other." Timmy, now a teenager, threw himself into the after-school tutoring program. He remembered all too well the challenges of schoolwork and was determined to make a difference. His patience and encouragement helped many struggling students improve their grades and boost their confidence. One day, while helping a young girl with her math homework, Timmy noticed her frustration. "Hey, it's okay," he said gently. "Math was tough for me too. But you know what? We'll figure this out together." The girl looked up at him, her eyes filled with hope. "Really? You had trouble with math, too?" Timmy nodded, smiling. "Yep, but I didn't give up, and neither will you. Let's take it step by step." As they worked through the problems together, the girl's frown slowly transformed into a triumphant grin. It was moments like these that made all their efforts worthwhile. Beyond their regular volunteering, Timmy and Karen also participated in special events at the center. They helped organize community cleanup days, health fairs, and cultural festivals. Their enthusiasm was contagious, drawing more and more people into the center's activities. During one particularly busy weekend, as they were setting up for a multicultural food festival, Karen paused to watch Timmy. He was laughing with a group of volunteers as they decorated the main hall with flags from around the world. Her heart swelled with pride at the young man he had become. "You okay, Mom?" Timmy asked, noticing her gaze. Karen smiled, her eyes misty. "Just proud of you, honey. Look at all the good we're doing here." Timmy wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "We're doing it together, Mom. You, me, and everyone here. That's what makes it special." As the months passed, the positive impact of Timmy's act of kindness and Lisa's generosity rippled through the community, inspiring countless others to stand up for what is right. The community center became a beacon of hope and unity, drawing people from all walks of life. Stories of small acts of kindness began to circulate around town. Neighbors helped each other with yard work, strangers paid for each other's groceries, and local businesses started offering discounts to those in need. The spirit of compassion that Timmy had ignited seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. One sunny afternoon, as Timmy and Karen were leaving the community center after a busy day of volunteering, they noticed a group of teenagers gathered around a bulletin board. Curious, they approached to see what had caught their attention. The board was covered with colorful flyers announcing various community initiatives. There were posters for a new mentoring program, sign-up sheets for neighborhood cleanup crews, and announcements for cultural exchange events. But what stood out most was a large banner at the center that read, "Be the Change, inspired by Timmy." Karen's eyes welled up with tears of pride as she saw the impact her son's actions had made. Timmy, feeling a mix of embarrassment and joy, simply stood there, taking it all in. A young girl from the group turned and recognized Timmy. Her face lit up with excitement. "Oh my gosh, it's you," she exclaimed. "You're the reason I started volunteering here. Your story made me realize that even kids like us can make a difference." Timmy smiled warmly, touched by her words. "That's amazing," he said. "What kind of volunteering do you do?" The girl beamed with pride as she explained how she and her friends had started a buddy system for new students at their school, helping them feel welcome and included. "We wanted to do something to stop bullying," she said, "just like you stood up to that mean man at the cafe." As they chatted, more people gathered around, each sharing their own stories of how they'd been inspired to take action in their community. An elderly man talked about organizing a neighborhood watch to keep their streets safe. A middle-aged woman described how she'd started a community garden to provide fresh produce for the food bank. As winter approached, the community center buzzed with activity. Volunteers hung twinkling lights and festive decorations, transforming the space into a warm and inviting holiday haven. Timmy, Karen, and Lisa had planned a special celebration to bring everyone together. On the night of the event, the center's main hall was filled with laughter and the aroma of hot cocoa. Families from all corners of the town gathered, their faces glowing with joy and anticipation. Timmy stood near the entrance, greeting guests with a bright smile and a cheerful, "Happy Holidays." Karen watched her son with pride, her heart swelling at how much he had grown. She caught Lisa's eye across the room, and they shared a knowing look. This moment was the culmination of everything they had worked for over the past year. As the evening progressed, the hall filled with the sounds of carols and the chatter of happy voices. Children played games in one corner while adults exchanged stories and well wishes in another. The spirit of community and togetherness was palpable. Timmy made his way through the crowd, stopping to chat with friends both old and new. He paused to help a younger child reach a cookie on a high table, then laughed as he was pulled into an impromptu dance by a group of elderly ladies. Karen and Lisa stood side by side, watching the scene unfold. "I never imagined our lives could change so much in just 1 year," Karen said softly. Lisa nodded, her eyes twinkling. "It's amazing what a single act of kindness can do." As the night drew to a close, Timmy, Karen, and Lisa gathered at the center of the room. Timmy cleared his throat, and the crowd fell silent. "I just wanted to say thank you," he began, his voice clear and confident. "Thank you to everyone here for making our community so special. A year ago, I never could have imagined all of this. But now, looking around at all of you, I can't imagine it any other way." The room erupted in applause, and Timmy felt his mom's arm wrap around his shoulders. Lisa joined them, and soon they were surrounded by friends and neighbors, all sharing hugs and words of gratitude. Do you think Timmy deserved Lisa's gift? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your perspective. And if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to my channel. I am spending hours upon hours writing these heartwarming stories for you, and your support is what keeps me going.